Well, hello everybody. I hope you're all doing fantastically well. It is Connor McGilligan here. We are back with another episode on One Leeds. I feel extremely zoomed in right now, so I'm very, very happy. I've just spotted a cheeky image of me when I was about 5 years old in the background, which is fantastic. I can see Nancy giggling in the background there. But yeah, shout out to all of you who are in the building today. There's over 200 of you here on this Friday midday. We're going to be speaking about Jaden Bogle. We're going to be speaking about the tour in Germany and Ljubicic. I'm going to get that pronunciation right, and Nancy's going to teach me how to say it. We're going to be speaking about rumours as well, and the background as well behind being a Leeds United journalist and the problems and the trials and tribulations, but also the beneficiaries of that. And without any further ado, I'm going to introduce Nancy. Nancy, how are you doing?
Yeah, not bad, thanks. Not bad. Enjoying the picture of you in the background there.
I just spotted it then, and I was like, "Oh yes, full zoomed in," and there was a picture that my mum's put up, which is new. There you go. So, yeah, it's clearly been a TK Maxx or an IKEA venture for her in these past sort of weeks. So it's great to just spot myself in the top corner there. But Nancy, what's new? Is life as a Leeds United journalist treating you well?
Yeah, not bad. I mean, I'm at home instead of in Germany, so I suppose it could be better.
Yeah,
It
true.
looks nice and sunny over there, but no, it's not bad. I'm just itching for the games to start now. I feel like, I'm ready to go. It
Yeah.
feels like a long time ago now, May. So I'll be
Yeah.
keen to get down to Ellen Road for the Valencia game next week.
Yeah, it's funny when we were speaking right at the start and there was nothing going on and we managed to get an hour's worth of content. It's pretty spectacular how we managed to do that, really. I don't know if that's an indictment on us just being talkers, but yeah, it was. We've managed. This is the third one now, which is fantastic to have you on, Nancy. But I think we're just speaking about this off air, and I think it's really imperative to, before we get started on the Leeds United rumours, Germany and all that good stuff, I think it's really key that we talk about maybe the difficulties of being a sort of Leeds United journalist at this moment in time, and maybe the restrictions of the current ownership and in comparison to previous and all that sort of stuff. So is it been it's different, isn't it? And you wouldn't know obviously, but the amount of leaks that we had previously, it's very different under this ownership. And even, I guess we'll speak about him later on, Nancy, but Harrison, Burrows, everything was coming from the Sheffield United side, wasn't it? The Peterborough side. And I guess that's the Leeds United world we're living in right now.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I don't necessarily see it as a bad thing that what I'm told, it's a bit tighter under the 49ers in terms of information coming out than it was under previous owners. But I kind of think that, like, from a club point of view, it's rubbish for fans, because I know, like, everyone's desperate for any minor update all the time. But from the club point of view, it means they're kind of doing business pretty well, I think. I take it as a positive that they're not going to get sucked into, like, crazy bidding wars or paying over the odds because they're being linked here and there. And I think you've seen that in the past week with a few names that have cropped up, and then it's very quickly been squashed because Leeds are a nice, easy name to throw into the mix if you want to drive up the price of your player, pretty much. So quite often, we are hearing about it from, reports from the other end of things, and then you kind of have to use your contacts to, like, follow it up and try and get that second sourced or double sourced, and that can take a bit of time sometimes. But no, it's all good. Like, I realise the appetite is very much there as well for as much information as possible, but they're pretty, I think you just call it professional, like super professional in the way they're carrying out their business. It might be maybe like more American way of doing it, I'm not sure, but yeah.
You'll probably be feeling the frustration as well of some Leeds fans who are not hearing the news instantaneously from yourself, and I guess that it sort of files into that, doesn't it, Nancy? That if you're not hearing anything, and it just seems to be so quiet our end with respects to everything, really, it's a professional outfit, of course, with regarding the 49ers, but you can sort of understand the frustration, but then in a strange sort of way, it's like, that's kind of what everyone wanted, a real professional outfit. So
I know, yeah, it's obviously that contrast between what you're used to and what you like and kind of what you want. And I suppose the ideal would be somewhere in the middle where bits are
yeah,
creeping out, but yeah, it's really professional. But you know, we get it when we get these things, like it might not be me, it might be some of the other outlets, like we always report it, and then the rest of us are chasing up trying to get that sourced ourselves. And it's never just as simple as going, oh well, it's been reported by this person or someone in Germany or whatever, we'll just run it as fact. Like you have to basically find that out and confirm it for yourself, because otherwise you get egg on your face if that person that you don't know somewhere at another newspaper, or even the people you do know, they might not have it 100% right. And it's you want to be right. I would rather be right than first and wrong, if that makes sense, sort of second or third, and confident that I've got it right, rather than first out the blocks and then it's not quite accurate and you're kind of causing a headache there. So
yeah, no, 100%. And that's completely understandable. But since we last spoke, Jaden Bogle is obviously coming. I think Rothwell's coming as well, but Bogle's probably the biggest name, Nancy. And obviously, I know you had some connection in Sheffield as well, and maybe you've been able to speak to some people on that end as well. But it felt like a quite a significant signing for Leeds United, and one of those that I mentioned it on a couple of videos towards the back end of the season of Leeds getting like sort of Ampadu-esque signings, ones where you just really didn't expect them, and it's like, where's that come from? And it just works, and it's been perfect. And it felt like Bogle, without seeing him, obviously pulling a Leeds shirt in a competitive game of football yet, it felt like that was that sort of signing, one of those style players.
yeah, 100%. I think that was the comparison I was going to make as well. It's like they're not necessarily maybe going to drum up the levels of excitement as if you sign a player from abroad or if it's a striker or something, but actually, where was the gap that Leeds needed to fill? It was right back. And he fits that profile that I think we know Leeds are looking for. He played well for Sheffield United and by all accounts kind of really improved last season as well. So there's that potential for a higher ceiling. And I think he'll bring things that maybe are a bit different to what like Archie Gray offered last year. Obviously, brilliant as he was, like he wasn't a natural right back. That was something that he evolved into. But you're going to get more of a natural right back in Jaden Bogle. He's quite attack minded, and I think if anyone's watched the highlights from the friendly earlier in the week, I think he got an assist from like driving right to the byline and cutting it back. And I don't know that that's necessarily a move we'd have seen Archie Gray make loads of times last season. So it's quite interesting. And we've seen Farker obviously play as well with the back three and toying with some slightly different ideas this pre-season so far. So I can see him fitting into that sort of system as well. So I think it's a really important signing. I know they had to persevere with it and go back a couple of times with a couple of offers. And it's not been straightforward necessarily because Sheffield United are kind of going through a takeover, and it's kind of like, who do you talk to? And all these things are happening. Like getting hold of someone when they're in the middle of their own massive transition is never easy. But you've seen that once Leeds want their man, kind of, they're pretty good at executing that move. So I think it's a really, really good signing.
Yeah, 100%. Me too. I guess the tour in Germany, with what you're referring to there, Nancy, it was a bit odd that there's no fans over there. Still can't really get my head around that, to be honest. I think from sort of my understanding, it's to do with obviously the Euros. I think is that true? I don't really know what links up there.
Yeah, I think basically, and it feels a bit odd because I know other clubs have gone and they've been able to take fans, but what was communicated to Leeds from the like German authorities or the police force there was that basically after the Euros they had a lot of people going on annual leave, so they didn't have the capacity to police it, which I know for a fact like Leeds weren't happy with. And I think if they'd known that in advance of like booking everything, sorting it, they possibly would have looked elsewhere, because they know that like fans love to go away for pre-season. And so they weren't happy with it at all, but it was kind of so far down the line that actually there wasn't a lot they could do, and they did work really hard speaking to the authorities to try and turn that around. But yeah, the I think the fans have got their detective hats on and managed to like find out kind of where they are as well, which is pretty impressive because there's been next to no information that's crept out
Yeah.
about where they actually are. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Once again, it's not even just down to rumors, is it? It's anything. You know, the 49ers are just so shut down on anything. Football guru. There you go. It's a bit of a good name to call yourself there, isn't it? Nancy Football Guru. Shout out to you, mate. Like, comment, chat, help the channel out. Really appreciate that as always. But yeah, so we obviously we've spoken about Bogle. I think it's probably key to speak also, Nancy, on the other side. And we sort of spoke off air a little bit about sort of Harrison Burrows and that saga. And if you're not aware of it, Leeds seemed to, out of absolutely nowhere, look like they were hijacking the Harrison Burrows deal to Sheffield United. It seemed a bit confusing to me, Nancy, because I was a little bit like, you've got them sort of, you're reading between the lines, but they're putting sort of Furpo in and around their social media. I know he's got 12 months left on his deal, like we've spoken about before. But, he's the fully fledged left back. It feels like Harrison Burrows potentially is going right to the very top, according to Darren McAntony. And there was a bit of a sort of cryptic TalkSport interview where suddenly Leeds were the second club who were involved in the deal. I mean, was that ever the case? I mean, was Harrison Burrows coming in a second left back, which didn't really figure to me, to be honest with you. But what was going on there?
Yeah, I guess there's like a few things here. Obviously, there were some reports, I think, linking Junior Firpo with Betis, and obviously, like the Leeds have already done a couple of deals there this summer, and he played for them earlier in his career. But that was based on nothing sort of concrete, as far as I understand it. So that was like a weird one. But I think we see obviously how prominent he is in the promo, and that's not accidental. So I think he's obviously part of the plans going forward. And yeah, the Harrison Burrows thing, I don't think it was, really where it's been suggested it was. Obviously, like, I really rate him as a player. I think he's great. One of the best young players in the EFL last year, in my opinion. So I can see why he's sort of drummed up this attention. But
something like 29 goal contributions, wasn't it, or something like that?
Yeah.
Reading his stats, crazy.
And obviously, like, he's a real asset for Peterborough. So I think, like, Darren McAntony is a character. I don't think he's probably a bit of a Marmite character with fans of other clubs, maybe even Peterborough fans. And he is like one of the most prominent media sort of savvy owners that you'll see in terms of going on radio shows and talking about it. But I would always kind of, I don't know, think about it in terms of what's beneficial to him in terms of drawing up a bit of a bidding war for his player, and like, quite often, even if if Leeds have expressed an interest or whatever, and that's fine, taking it into the public forum is like a slightly different thing. And this similar case with a few other people in recent weeks, where I think it's easy to tag Leeds' name on there to sort of drum up a bit of a bidding war, or sort of a bit of cat among the pigeons to jog people into actually like tabling a proper offer because of the weight that Leeds' name probably carries in the transfer window. So yeah, look, I think as things stand, it looks like he's off to Sheffield United now, doesn't it? So I don't know that it was ever as close. I think it was sort of an owner sort of having a chat in a casual way on a very public place.
Read between the lines, guys. But I agree, and I think that's one thing as well. You see a link, don't you, Nancy, and you immediately think to yourself, "Oh, Leeds are," like we were just speaking about Raksaki, obviously at Crystal Palace, and we'll get into that in just a little bit. But as soon as you see Raksaki and Leeds United, a tweet gets 300, 400 retweets, maybe 1,000 likes or whatever, and you'll see your followers going from like 300 to like 1,000, and it's the weight of Leeds sort of being like a top 10 club in this country and all that sort of stuff. And sometimes you forget about that, don't you, Nancy, and the fact that it is social media, and you don't have to have like a reputable name or whatever to just put so and so sport and you've appeared on X, Y, and Z and all this sort of stuff, and then you're viable for a transfer rumor. Incredible.
Yeah, exactly that. And like sometimes you like I'll see something and it'll be new to me, and then you're like going back through all the websites that have to find the original poster and see like, you know, who that person is, basically, like
Yeah,
where, you know, if it's even worth looking into, because sometimes it's like, okay, like I don't know if that's a great foundation for me to spend hours digging and like ringing
yeah.
around or whatever, but you tend to anyway, just on the off chance. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting like world, the kind of social media transfer rumor mill. But
Is indeed. Is indeed.
yeah.
Cultivated by Mr. Romano. But let's get on to the real name, and it looks like the real sort of solidified transfer link in Dejan Ljubicic. I've no idea if I butchered that name. If I haven't butchered that name, I'm quite proud of myself. Could never speak Spanish that well when I was doing it at GCSE level, Nancy. However, apparently I had a great accent. So it's from watching years and years of just managerial interviews and players interviews and imitating that at my highest Steve McLaren level. So yeah, Dejan Ljubicic. A, have I got that right? And B, what's the latest, Nancy?
Yeah, well, I'm going to say that's right until he's like, if he signs and then they get him saying, "How do you say your name?" That's the old classic in
Yeah, yeah.
the welcome interview, isn't it? But
Send them here at 16 minutes in. I've got it nailed on.
yeah, yeah, that's it. So I'm happy to roll with that until
Okay.
until I get told otherwise. But no, it's an interesting one, obviously. But like confirmed, like Leeds went in with a bid. Region of €4 million, which I think is about £3.3 million. You got to get your sort of conversion calculator out for those ones. But that was kind of rejected by Cologne. Obviously, they were relegated at the end of the season from the Bundesliga. He's got a year left on his deal, and I think, you know, as things stand, it sounds like he's not rushing to sign a new one, and that would make sense, obviously, if there's a lot of interest there. I don't think that Leeds are the only club in the mix on this. So it could be a case that, you know, they might get outbid here. I don't know kind of basically there's probably a point at which they might walk away, and you never know what that point is. But like we saw with Bogle, they went back 2 or 3 times. And I think they are still interested in him. So yeah, and he definitely fits the type of player that Daniel Farkas said he wants. Like he wants another central midfielder. I think preferably more of a box to box, because you know you see with Gruev and Ampadu, the more defensive duties are sort of taken care of. And Rothwell is more of that sort of player, more of a number 8, but like based on his second half of the season with Southampton, I don't know that he's your primary starter every week in that role, unless he really comes to life sort of early doors.
Is that your feeling? Is that you feeling
That's
that it's not?
yeah. Sorry, that's more of a personal opinion.
Yeah, yeah.
But like I think Leeds are optimistic in that, having signed Rothwell on loan. You know, he scored 4 goals in, I think it was 16 games for Southampton at the end of the season. If you stretch that out over the course of the season, and he can add 10 goals, that's 10 goals from midfield that Leeds just didn't have last year. So yeah, that's the logic behind signing him. Yeah, as for Ljubicic, like I think he's more of a box to box type. Obviously, having lost Camera, like I think he can play that more defensive role as well, I should say. At times for Cologne last season, he did fill in kind of more of a number 6 role, but I don't think that there's like the pressing need for that with Leeds.
Yeah.
So yeah, and he's an Austrian international. Good kind of height on him as well, 6'2". I wrote this down because I was like, you know, that's always a good thing.
Set pieces.
26. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
good set pieces.
sounds like Leeds have been tracking him for a little while as well, actually, you know, possibly a year or more. And they've gone in now, which is, you know, when you look at the contract situation, a smart time to do it.
Yeah, it feels like very similar to Bogle, doesn't it? I think Bogle had 12 months left on his deal. They went in. Sheffield United said, "Nah, we don't fancy that." Went in again. "Now we don't fancy that." And it felt like there was, something that, I mean, how do we? The significance of the Bogle deal was we sort of got told it was 5 million. Was it sort of a little bit more added on to that? It felt like it was, and maybe that's what could happen potentially with Ljubicic a little bit later on down the line to make it a little bit more incentive.
Yeah, that's it. It's and a lot of the time as well, the fee can be right, but it can be about the structure of the deal, when the payments come, how much of it's up front as well. So um, it might be that we see a little bit more added on, or that, it's a tiny bit more added on plus add-ons, and then the add-ons are a bit of a bigger chunk. Um, I think probably this is me just sort of um, talking off the top of my head here, but if you're in negotiation with Leeds, I'm sure there's a promotion add-on
Yeah,
going
yeah,
in most of these deals. Um, so yeah, I think if they do manage to sign him, a bit like with Bogle, if you're going back again and again, like, the fee is obviously going to increase each time. But yeah, I think we've seen, like, under the 49ers, Leeds aren't gonna they're not going to spend silly money, or they're not going to pay over what they think a player's worth. And so with 12 months left on his deal as well, I think um, you probably wouldn't want to go like tons higher than what they've already gone in at.
yeah.
Depends how highly they rate him, but
And I guess if a midfielder's coming in, Matthew Davis, who just said there, I can't see Charlie Crew getting too many minutes. Do you think he'll be allowed to go out on loan? I guess if maybe like a Ljubicic came in, there's obviously two ways of looking at it. If Crew's there and he can learn, from some of these midfielders that have been at the tender age of 17, that'd be advantageous. But I guess as well, if he's out on loan, he's able to get a couple of minutes, a fair few minutes under his belt, that'd be advantageous and beneficial to his career standing as well. I mean, how would you see that working if someone like Dejan Ljubicic came in?
yeah. Well, I think you see, obviously he just got his a new contract a few weeks ago, and it sounds like he's been pretty in the mix during this Germany camp. He's been obviously with the first team and all of that. But um, I don't think Leeds would be afraid to loan him out. But again, with all of these things, like, they're very methodical in. I think they would have to sign someone first before they talked about sending
Yeah, yeah,
sending him out, sort of thing. But yeah, I could see a world in which that happens. He's still young. It's the perfect way, you know, for any young player to kind of get properly immersed in senior football. And loads of players, whenever I speak to them, if they've been out on loan earlier in their career, they're always like, "Oh yeah, it was the best thing," because as good as academy football and under 21 football is, like, it doesn't prepare you for the real world, and I think,
yeah.
or the real football world. And so I think, yeah, I can see a world in which that happens. He's obviously getting that senior cap for Wales. Like, he's obviously an exciting young player. So
Definitely. So you did sort of interviews earlier on this week with Joseph and Eli Gruev. How did that go? And were there sort of any, I don't know, were there any signs? I mean, when I look at Joseph, I mean, I might be getting a bit ahead of myself here, but I'm thinking he's going to be the top scorer in the league and probably the best player to ever come out of the championship. So I'm not getting ahead of myself at all. But no, I was definitely vying for him last season to play. I felt there was so much of his movement and intelligence for a young age, and almost like sharpshooter-esque striker ability that would have been such an advantage for Leeds last season in so many games. I mean, what's his attitude like? What I quite like a lot of what you see with Joseph Nancy is he's all about the team as well. It's not just about sort of like selfish. I want to do this. I want to do that.
yeah, like, I mean, I was impressed with him last season. I loved whenever he brought him off, whenever Farker brought him off the bench, he added so much. Obviously got those two goals against Chelsea, and whilst we were there interviewing him, he was getting all sorts of stick from Ethan Ampadu, was like doing some stuff behind us as well, and he was like, "You're talking about your goals against Chelsea again." So, um, you know, he's he's clearly, like, got a good rapport with a lot of the more senior players. But I really think he'll have a lot to offer this season. I hope he gets a really good crack at proper minutes, good amount of starts. Because speaking to him, like he sat down and he was just like, "Yeah, I'm ready." Like it came across so well in terms of not arrogance. It was just like absolute confidence in what he can offer. And so like he feels he's ready for that role. He managed to make a role for himself, not out of nothing last year, but he kind of, I guess, crafted that spot for himself in the squad in terms of being able to come off the bench. So he's got a lot to offer. Scored those, I think it was 2 goals, wasn't it, against Hanover in the friendly. He looks really sharp. His movement's really great. So I think he's got a lot to offer going forward. And he was obviously pretty happy because he'd backed Spain for the Euros final. So apparently he turned up to training the day after the final in his Spain kit and was giving it up to some of the English lads. So.
How do you think how do you genuinely think going into the season? Do you reckon him and Farker have had a discussion and Farker's maybe just said to him, look, you're going to be number one this season? Because that even when we've seen like, him play like the last 2 games, he's been the lead man in the line. And what we know is Bamford can obviously do that job. Goodness me. But Bamford can do that job. And he's at this moment in time, it feels like he's getting his way back into it, which, once again, is a bit stodgy and streaky with Pat. But do you think he's maybe had a conversation with Daniel Farker and Farker's gone, look, you're going to be at this season? Or do you think that's just maybe just play well and you sort of play yourself into the team?
Yeah, I think like from what I understand, Farker's quite a good communicator. Like I don't think there's ever any grey area in terms of what his expectations are for them and what role what each player might be playing in the squad. And I think you'll see, especially early doors like Bamford coming back. Obviously picked up that injury, didn't he, sort of towards the end of the season as well. And these things tend to linger even with a bit of time off. So he'll be working his way back from that. I can see a world in which he does, make that role his own. I know that Farker's really publicly backed Bamford before. He thinks a lot of him and really rates what he can bring to the team. So I don't think it'll be an easy job by any means to kind of unseat him in that number 9 role. But if he starts the first few games, grabs a couple of goals, then it becomes hard to drop, doesn't he? So he is genuinely, I think, like the one to watch this season, the player to get most excited about, because he's shown he can already do it. This isn't based off like a few under-21s games or whatever. Like I think it was enough last season to sort of come in and have that chat and say, look, I want to be your leading man. So let's see. But I think it's definitely an exciting time for him, and there's cause for him to have that confidence.
Yeah, Darrell said surely Joseph must start against Pompey, and it does feel that way, doesn't it, Nancy? With regards to sort of his involvement. I mean, I guess we don't know anything more in terms of the sort of release of any more games in Germany that came out of the blue. Obviously, Hanover, you can now watch the highlights on the Leeds YouTube site. I was a bit like, this is very unusual, but okay, fair enough. So yeah, and presumably we've heard absolutely nothing yet regarding that.
No, well, I think it's safe to say there probably will be another game before they before they come back. They won't go out there just for one. But obviously they've got to be back for next weekend for the final friendly against Valencia. So I imagine there'll be one more before they come back. But it sounds like it's been quite a good camp for them. It's been fairly intense, fairly locked down. Whether they wanted that in the first place or not, it can be quite a good thing. So yeah, I think you'll probably see another before they head back.
Yeah, definitely. Let's touch on obviously we've touched on the tour in Germany, but has there been any sort of further rumours? And Terry's just been in there, and I think Everton have they were interested in Lindstrom. There's couple of people in the comments saying that's been confirmed. Now, I'm not 100% sure. I can't profess to know a lot about Lindstrom. I don't know if he's an attacking midfielder, if he's a winger. I'm not really sure how and where he works, but I know Everton have been looking at him. But I guess Nonto and Somerville are on the lips again, Nancy, as we've spoken about once, twice, 3 times. And it feels, I'm honestly, there's day by day, I'm sort of going past and I'm like, right, it's Friday the 26th, Friday the 27th, Friday the 20th, it's Saturday, Sunday, Monday. And I'm thinking, just keep counting down, keep being quiet, nobody come in. But I don't know what it is about it, Nancy. I just have this awful feeling that we're going to see them both go. And I hope I'm wrong, and I hope I'm just being a cynical Yorkshire git. But what are your feelings towards it at the minute? Is there any activity going on in the background? They're all over our social media, the YouTube. It feels once again that if the bid is made and it meets a certain criteria, the lads will be gone. But until that point,
yeah, I think the situation with both of them is that I don't think it's going to get quiet at any point until the window shuts. And from what I understand, it's not got to a point where anyone's tabled an offer with Leeds, and said like, this is what we're willing to pay for your player. So a lot of it is just speculation or talk. And I think I said it before when I was on, but clubs might be interested, but until they approach Leeds, it doesn't really mean anything. So at the moment, like, nothing's even got to that point. Nothing concrete has like really come in, at least in the past few weeks as well. So look, you can't say that no one's going to come in, especially as the window sort of grinds on, and if some of the Premier League clubs decide to start throwing a bit more money around, you never know. But basically, as it stands, there's nothing really there for either of them in concrete terms. But it could change quickly, and I expect it'll rumble on for a while.
Yeah, it definitely feels like with Nonto, even if a loan signing for Lindstrom is completed from Napoli, it still feels like with the money that they've got for Onana, which is obviously, like we know, plus 50 million quid, and their interest is still there for Nonto. It feels like that one will always rumble on, and they definitely have the capital to meet Leeds' demands, don't they? Of course.
Yeah, that's it. And I think Lindstrom might have been confirmed about 5 minutes before we came on. I'd need to double check. So, but yeah, I mean, yeah, they've got the money there. Obviously, they're up against it a bit with like the PNS stuff and whatever, and the ownership situation there is something to factor in. But they've done all these deals, so actually maybe the PNS situation's cleared up. It's hard to know with all of the clubs kind of switching their players, pure profit players, around and working it out. But yeah, I mean, these things can always change quickly. But Leeds are in a strong position, and they're keen to reiterate this, that basically they're not under any pressure to sell any more players. I think what they have done, and I know there was some panic about the amount that they have let go this summer, but if you were to get to the end of the window and reflect on it, I think we'll look back on it and see it as really good housekeeping and tidying up, and just sort of some of it, obviously, like losing Archie Gray, no one ever wanted to happen, but it gave them this position now where they're able to keep hold of the players, a lot of other players, and everything that we've talked about previously. So I know the panic's there, but once they've got the bodies in to replace, I actually think this will be a really strong window for Leeds. So yeah, let's see what happens. But they're not under any pressure to sell either of Nonto or Somerville, but they're also not daft. So if someone comes in with a huge offer, you do it, don't you? So
yeah. A few comments as well, seeing it this morning before we get onto the final bit on Gabi Sara. Gabi Sara to Leeds. I mean, that would be that'd be a hell of a lot of money, wouldn't it? So yeah. I don't know, seeing that in the chat, but I mean, we're talking about Ljubicic for potentially like what, 4 or 5 million. I mean, Gabi Sara, you're probably talking plus 20, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I like, it's not that the money's not there to spend. Like, that's the reassuring thing all the way through this. It's never been a case of lack of money from Leeds. It's been P&S or wanting to be smart about it. But yeah, comparatively, I think you're talking a different figure,
level.
aren't you?
Yeah,
Yeah,
of
yeah,
course, and that's it, isn't it, Nancy? It's like if you got PNS in order and you sorted on that side of things, if you then go and spend, it is going to be for Gabby Sarr upwards of at least 15 million, on the cheap on a cheap day. That is, yeah, that's a lot of money, isn't it? So yeah.
definitely is. Yeah, yeah,
Should we finish on Sammy Schmodix? It feels like that's never
yeah.
gonna ever go away. Um,
Mm.
yeah, I guess it's interesting that Leeds have been trialing a 3-4-3 as well, Nancy, and I sort of look at those like inverted tens and a number 9, which could be obviously Mateo Joseph and maybe Sammy Schmodix fitting in that role. He's played across the front line, hasn't he? He's very versatile. Is there anything on that?
Um, yeah, from what I understand, Leeds aren't. He's not on Leeds' list. Leeds aren't in for him. It was a bit of a left field one. I think, like, realistically speaking, and knowing a little bit of the situation with him at Blackburn, like, it probably will be on the move this year. I think, um, he's at a point in his career where he's maybe looking for a next, like, a big move, like, to really try and achieve the goals that he wants before he maybe moves past his peak. And obviously, he had a cracking season last year. But so he probably is ambitious enough to look for a promotion challenge inside. But I don't think, or even a Premier League team, because I know Ipswich have. I think they were either rumoured to or confirmed to have tabled a bid for him. So, but I don't think Leeds are really in the contention on him. And I suppose you'd ask, like, where he might fit, how he might fit. Even with the tweaks, I think with what Leeds have got, I don't know that it's worth dropping a huge amount of money on him, even if he did score, what was it, 27 goals last season. Um, Versatile as he is. So yeah, I don't think there's anything at this stage. Like, what I heard was he's not on any of Leeds' lists in terms of what they're aiming for, who they go for. So
Yeah, yeah. I guess that makes sense, doesn't it? And yeah, I know we spoke a little bit off air about Raksaki as well. That seems to be once again, Nancy. I mean, even just on a rumor front, it feels like things have to move for something like that to happen. Like, I don't think Raksaki is going to be coming in his depth. He's going to be a guaranteed starter, really, isn't he? So it'd be a Somerville or an Onto moving on. That's how that one lies, really, doesn't it?
yeah, and I think he's a player that you can see fits the profile for again what we've seen kind of that Leeds like. He had a really impressive spell with Charlton, which is obviously going to then make clubs from the next step up or take a look at him. It just depends what Palace want from this. I don't think it's out of the question that they'd be interested in letting him go on a permanent, but he's obviously pretty highly rated. And yeah, given the position he plays, he's a winger, predominantly right-sided. So I don't think he necessarily comes in unless Leeds are expecting or have sold, someone else. So, but it's definitely like an interesting, yeah, he's an interesting player to have in the mix. Like, he'd be a really exciting addition.
Yeah, it feels like it. Yeah, he's frighteningly good, and obviously Palace won't let him go, will they? They just want to loan him out, which I think speaks volumes. Um, okay, right. Well, let's leave it there. I've taken up 40 minutes of your precious time, Nancy. So yeah, really, really appreciate you coming on again. I know everyone in here absolutely loves it when you come on, which is a big testament to yourself and the work you're doing, of course. But thank you to everybody who's also in the stream and all that sort of stuff. Someone sent me a message as well, Nancy, saying apparently Bordeaux have folded. What on
Yeah,
earth is going on there? Crazy. Yeah,
yeah,
bizarre. But,
worrying. Yeah.
yeah, very, very worrying indeed. But thanks so much, everybody. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you on the other side. Cheers.